Well, how about a little shop update this morning, guys? Lots of stuff going on, and it's been hard for me to get any video stuff shot just because there are so many things going on. I've been working around the property, of course, trying to get things cleaned up for spring now that spring has hit and we're already headed into summer, it seems like. So been reworking our hot tub and a few other little things like that. So that's been taking a lot of my time. But anyway, hopefully we can get back onto some sort of a schedule. Got the little Grizzly Rotary table back together, and I'll bring it down here and show you. I've been building a little box for it, which I actually started quite a while ago. It's still a work in progress. I've got some things to do on it. The handles on the sides, so once I get them done, why then I'll go ahead, clean up the sides and get them going, and then I've still got to build the lid for it. So anyway, we've got everything in the rotary table itself finally reassembled. I stripped down the casting and powder coated it. Not real happy with the whole process. You know, as I said before, if I would have received the original rotary table in good condition, why, I probably would have been just happy as can be and there wouldn't have been any complaints. But after going through 2 rotary tables and you know, the second one being damaged and everything, why, I'm not real happy with it. But it's up and functional. It'll do everything I want it to do, so we're just gonna move on, get it tucked away, and start using it finally now. Alright, so here's the table itself in my little box. I've, like I say, I stripped it and powder coated the main casting. Eventually I'll go back and do the tailstock. But here it is in all its glory. Stripped most of the crap off of it. I've already got a little bit dirty. Got a little sawdust on there. But anyway, we stripped it down pretty much to the main casting. The castings are about what we'd expect from a imported casting. You know, quality is not great on them. Anyway, I've got storage. It's all tucked away. The table works pretty well. It's got a couple little glitches in it, and it's just machining tolerances is what it is. Things not quite 100% the way they should be. But anyway, got a storage solution for it. Once we finish out this box, everything that came with the table is stored inside. Hold downs up here. The longer hold down bolts are here, and we'll make some other accessories. But I wanted everything tucked away to where it was all together, so I wasn't scrambling looking for parts and pieces. So you've got it to where everything's got a place, and you know, it's going to work out pretty well. But anyway, that's the rotary table. You know, we'll go on from there. Like I say, I still, knowing what I know now, I would not buy this again. You know, it's been way more hassle than it should have been. It ended up Grizzly gave me a gift certificate for a small amount. You know, by the time we'd gone through all this hassle, I knew I wasn't sending it back. And I really wasn't interested in arguing with them over it. Like I say, they issued a gift certificate, which took a couple weeks to get here, actually. They were kind of slow on it. But it got here, and I'll put it towards something. You know, it's not enough to take care of the time and expense that was involved with it, but what it is what it is. So anyway, let me get this out of the way. I'll show you what else we got going on here. All right, eBay purchases. Got a couple of them. One of them is a x-axis or a y-axis scale for on the G0755 mill, and we're finally getting around to replacing the scale that I'd modified when we put it on here. And this is one of the relatively inexpensive import scales. I've not powered it yet. You know, it's one of the glass scales. I could have gone with one of the less expensive Chinese scales like I've got on the rest of the mill, like's on the mill now. I ended up and went with these glass scales. They're supposed to be a little more reliable, a little more accurate. We'll see if they work or not. I've still got to get an adapter to hook in the serial plug for it. I don't have one of those. I was looking through my junk box, and I don't have one to go in the back of the reader head of the Shumatech DRO. So I'll get those ordered. They'll be here tomorrow, and we'll see about getting this mounted. And I'll probably, I don't know if we'll do an install video or not. We're going to retrofit it where we've got our y-axis scale now, and assuming it powers upright and reads the way it's supposed to. These are one of their glass scales, like I say, as opposed to the Chinese scales. So we'll see how they compare. You know, I may ultimately switch them all over. Now, these are the scales that are coming on the digital readouts. You see a lot of guys that are mounting digital readouts on their lathes and mills now that they're not talking a whole lot about, but they're these inexpensive Chinese digital readouts. I think a complete system now you can get for, depending on the size of your machine, about $350, $400, something like that. We'll see how these scales hold up. They're feel kind of cheap, you know, which is what they are. You know, they're an inexpensive scale. So we'll try them out, see how they do. I could ultimately swap over to all three scales on this if they work. Now, I have to go into the Shumatech DRO and change a jumper in there. The Chinese scales power off of 1.5 volts, whereas these power off of 5. So that's just a jumper setting that we'll make on the board itself in the digital readout head. Now, I'm into the Shumatech stuff, as I've said before, fairly deep. I've got quite a few of them, and I will continue to run them. In this day and age, they're not worth screwing around with. These imported Chinese scale, digital readouts now are so inexpensive that it makes far more sense to install them. And ultimately, I may start converting stuff over. We'll see. I've got a couple of the machines I want to put digital readouts on, so we'll see how this scale performs and how it acts with the Shumatech. The Shumatech I've been real happy with, as I've said before. On the 550, when I installed it on this G0755 mill, it reads to 4 decimal places out and with high resolution. That's way too jittery on the Chinese scales, and in reality I don't need that resolution on this mill. So we'll set this scale up and do some tests on it, assuming it powers and does what it's supposed to do, and we'll see if it's a little more stable, if it acts the same, or what we do with it. But anyway, that's going on. Another eBay purchase, and most of the stuff I've been working on now is turret lathe related. I've been doing a little bit of work on the Rahn Mayer Carpenter lathe, and it's mainly to see that it runs. I don't know if I've showed it or not. I took and the counter shaft was way the heckin' gone up in the air. I ended up and I've cut 18 inches out of that and dropped that counter shaft assembly back down to where it's a little bit lower center of gravity, a little bit easier for me as a little short guy to reach the controls. And I've already powered the motor itself to make sure it run. And I, in all honesty, didn't even know what it was. The labels were all gone and everything. It ends up, it's a 220 volt single phase. And it runs fine. It's one of the older motors. Its bearings in it are nice and quiet. I see nothing that needs to be done other than just cleaned up a little bit more and a coat of paint on it, which I'm not going to worry about any of that stuff right now. I've got the gearbox off of that lathe, and I'm going to clean it up and put it back on. I've got the mounts themselves welded up or tack welded in place. I'm going to pull it back off of the lathe, and we'll finish welding that, and then I'm going to mount it all together and make sure it runs and find out just how it sounds, what it's going to do. We know that lathe is well worn. In reality, I'm not going to do a whole lot with it other than get it back up and running and make sure it does run, because I don't need that lathe at this point in time, and it's a project for down the road. But I want to be aware of any issues I've got with it. So we'll make sure it runs, and then it'll get set aside. So we'll show that in a shop update, or maybe do a dedicated video to that running, whatever the case may be. So I'm about to start working on the Sheldon lathe. It's time to either do some work or replace the Sheldon lathe that I'm running now. So we're going to start working on the other one, see what kind of condition it's in. And I don't know exactly how involved I'm going to get. I'm hoping we're not going to see a whole lot of wear in the bed, because I realistically don't have the time or have allocated the funds to send that out and have it reground. So we'll look it over and see if it's close to where we want it to be. We'll probably start going through it and get it set up to replace the other Sheldon. Once I get that done, we're going to go ahead and finish setting this Sheldon up that I'm using currently as a dedicated turret lathe. And that's one of the things that I've been gathering up tooling for and kind of working on tooling in the background here, is setting up for my turret lathes. And this is an eBay purchase. This is a little acorn die. It's a number 3. And if you're not familiar with these, they've got what they call an acorn die, and it's an acorn style threading die, and they've got different sizes. This happens to be a number 3, and you can get them in whatever thread, and they're going to work real well. This is a releasing die head, and this one's a little giant brand. The main reason I got this is it's got a 1-inch shank on it, which is appropriate for the bigger turret that I've got on the Sheldon lathe. So this would set in your turret, when you start it in, I'm not sure we're threaded up straight to the world there. Let's get that straightened around here. Make sure we're on here. When you feed your turret up in, it's going to engage, and then it's going to self-thread. And you set your stop, and once it reaches the end of where you're threading, why it releases. Then you're going to have to manually shut off the lathe and put it in reverse, and to back it off, then when you pull your turret back, it engages the other way until it backs off. So anyway, that's for the Sheldon. I'll add other Acorn dies, which are readily available as I need them, or as I find a good buy on them, type of thing. But I've already got the pins out. I've disassembled this and looked, but we're going to go through, clean this up, and get it ready to go. Now for the smaller turret lathe, I have had and I believe this is a Eastern brand, a self-releasing die head. And this is a small, Eastern Machine, a screw company. Now this is going to be appropriate for the Atlas and the Logan lathe. It's got a 5/8 shank where I want 3/4 inch shanks. Since I'm going to dedicate it to it, I'm going to sleeve this one. You know, you can get or buy sleeve adapters to go from 5/8 to 3/4. We're just going to shrink a sleeve on there and be happy with it. The way these work, and I've done some work to this. Now this handle I just now installed yesterday. I was playing in the afternoon, and this is silver soldered on here. Otherwise we just had this little nubbin that stuck out. And the way they operate is they sit in your turret lathe, you lock them on like that, and this one's still boogered up. This was an eBay purchase from several years ago that I haven't really utilized. But when it goes in, you've got a threaded portion out here, which we're going to rebuild new parts for this and build some touch-off adapters for it. So as it feeds in, once it reaches the point where you want to stop it, it depresses this plunger, and your die will release again. So you're looking at it like this. And there's released. So you lock it back in position. Manually, when you get ready to thread, it's going to feed in towards you, bump on this, and release your die. So, and then you can just pull your lever back for your turret. So that's there again. That one's going to get cleaned up. This one, I've had this die head for quite some time. Several years I bought it, and I've just never utilized it, never taken the time to rebuild it. I recently picked up a bunch of threading inserts for it. So some brand new threading inserts. There again, eBay purchases, and I don't have them sitting out here, but we'll get them going. So we're going to get that put back together and start utilizing it. That's another good accessory. I've got 3 other little die heads that I'm building that are in progress, and one of the things I wanted the rotary table for was for holding them in this position and doing some machining on them. So I've got to finish them up. But that is happening. We're moving along trying to finish up some of these projects. I've been working on the Atlas index centers, and I don't have them here to show you. What I've been doing is I'm turning a mandrel that's going to index on the bores of those index centers, and I'll be able to support them in a set of V-blocks either on the milling machine or on the planer, and then bolt them up to an angle plate so that my bores are in line. Then I'm going to either mill or plane off the top or the bases of those, and then I can cut my key for the bottom, and then probably in the mill, well, definitely in the mill, drill the holes for the mounting bolts on those. That way the bases are parallel with the bore, and I don't have to worry about alignment issues, angle issues, anything like that. So that's kind of what's happening. Several customer projects going on. Hornady 366, or an earlier Pacific that I just released a video on the inspection of it. We're rebuilding that. Quite a bit of setup and tooling that I'm doing to make that a production item more than anything else. Primer cups, empty primer catchers. This is kind of my rendition. I've got a couple of other things I'm going to change on them, but they snap right in to replace the originals that, well, in this case, the original that came with this machine is cracked. So we're probably going to replace it with a 3D printed primer catcher cup. And this is pretty close to what they're going to be. This fits okay. I'm going to make a couple more adjustments, and I'll be in Fusion 360 later today playing with those. I already know a couple of the changes I want to make. So that's kind of what's happening in the shop. You know, a little bit of an update. Like I say, it's been busy here. Been working on the shop itself, of course, but that's an ongoing project. Hopefully you found this a little bit interesting, entertaining, if nothing else. And any comments or suggestions, leave them in the comments section for me below. And as always, guys, thanks for taking the time to watch.